So my name is Skye MacLeod. I am the Associate Director for Media Education here at BRIC, and I've been here for a little over 5 years, close to 6 years. And just recently we've started having a conversation on the importance of pitching as like a skill set that we teach. So for those of you who don't know BRIC, we're one of the leading presenters of free cultural programming in Brooklyn and one of the largest in New York City. We present and incubate new works by artists and media makers who reflect the diversity around us. And I think this event really encapsulates showcasing the diversity of Brooklyn and the neighborhood that we're in. So in media education, we like to provide our community with opportunities and experiences that kind of expand and enhance their media literacy skill set. And last October, I was having a conversation with Anthony Riddle, who's the Director of Community Media, and he was saying that we should really invite the community in to pitch their television ideas, their television show ideas, directly to us. So we had a couple of events last fall that were very successful. One of which Michael and Squeaky were a part of, and we wanted to expand it a little bit this year. So we're actually having 3 events. This is the first one. It's the Practice Your Pitch panel. And then the next one will be another Perfect Your Pitch event in October 20th. And then we're having a 3rd event in November 16th, where you can actually pitch your show ideas directly to BRIC TV. And if it's greenlit, then we fund your shows for an upcoming season. So it's all kind of building towards getting your ideas and your shows on our channels. So that said, I'd like to now introduce this wonderful panel we have. Over on the far right is Kuye Youngblood. She is an Emmy Award-winning producer and is currently the head of development and production for BRIC TV. Kuye was the executive producer for the Miami Web Fest nominated Brooklynification and part of the management team for Show About the Show, which is an awesome show. You should check it out. And she was also the series producer for Neighborhood Beat, a show about Brooklyn's dynamic neighborhoods. Prior to BRIC, she worked in the corporate sector producing program content for networks such as BMW and Mini USA. Next to her is Michael Pinckney. He is an award-winning director with over 10 years experience in film and TV series such as The Inside Man, Top 5, Broad City, The 25th Hour, Seventh Heaven, The Best Man, Law and Order, and the Academy Award-nominated film Precious. Michael made his feature film directorial debut with You're Nobody Till Somebody Kills You, a gritty crime thriller executive produced by Spike Lee and distributed by Lionsgate. He actually has a new series premiering on BRIC TV in October called Soul Kings, which is about the sneaker culture in New York City. So keep an eye out for that. It'll be premiering October 2nd and then digitally on October 3rd. Next to Michael, we have Squeaky Moore, who is a producer, director, writer, actress, and pitch guru with producing credits that include 64, a project on Father Absent Homes that she executive produced and assisted director, Father's Day, also produced by Squeaky, that addresses the effects of absentee fathers, which debuted on the launch of Magic Johnson's Aspire TV network. Squeaky's new book, 100 Pitch Mistakes I've Made So You Don't Have To, is available on Amazon, and I actually picked one up. And I think she has a few copies. It's a really amazing resource, and it's one that I've just started diving into because I actually don't have very much pitch experience. I get too scared in front of the camera. But it's a really nice entry, and it's very personal anecdotes of her experience in this world. And finally, we have Rashidi Hendrix, who is also an award-winning music executive, tech entrepreneur, producer, and is the co-founder and chief content officer for Laugh Radio. Since their recent launch of the hugely popular Laughly app. It's gained over 100,000 installs and ranked the number 2 app in the Apple Store. Prior to Laugh Radio, Rashidi worked on series such as Kitchen Nightmares for Fox, Tori and Dean, Home Sweet Hollywood for Oxygen, the MTV Awards, The Apprentice on NBC, Jimmy Kimmel Live on ABC, Orange is the New Black on Netflix, and The Monique Show. I downloaded his app, and I'm a huge fan of Jim Gaffigan, so now I have a lot of really cool Jim Gaffigan stand-up podcasts to listen to on my way to and from work. So let's give the panelists a round of applause for coming out tonight. All right, so this is a little bit of an experiment. And I want to try to make this as a welcoming and productive experience for everyone involved, both the audience and the people who have volunteered to come up to the mic and pitch their idea. It's a pretty nerve-wracking experience, I can imagine. The last time we did this type of thing, we were in a closed studio with just 4 of us and the person pitching. Now we have a live audience. You can see there's a live feed that you can actually see the person pitching as they're pitching. And just to ratchet up the nerves a little bit. And so the way the format goes is I'm going to check in with Elise and Leon just about who has checked in and filled out the appropriate paperwork. These are just release forms. And then I'll call you up. You'll have 3 minutes to pitch your idea. And then we'll turn it over to the panel to give 5 minutes of feedback. So I'll basically be the timekeeper, okay? Any questions? Any comments? Forgot to mention beer and wine. If you guys want to get a drink, you can get a drink in the cafe at City Farms. Okay? So, Kristalla Pierce. Come on down, Kristalla. Let's give her a round of applause.
Hello, my name is Kristalla Pierce. I'm the writer and director of a short film called 151 Ludlow that I'm shooting later this year. And it's a proof of concept for a larger project. 151 Ludlow is set in a tenement apartment at 151 Ludlow, and it tracks the lives of 6 people who live there over a 100-year period. So we start with Clarence, who is an Australian. She's a little lost. She's in her late 30s. She's just arrived in New York. She's found a cheap place on Craigslist, and she goes up the stairs and meets her new tenant, her new roommate, who's called Lele. Lele is African-American, genderqueer, from a very different background to Clarence. So they become friends over Vegemite and learning how to make kombucha, and in doing that, they imagine what other women inhabited this space before them. They particularly imagine 2 sisters, Irish sisters, who moved to New York and lived in this apartment in 1916, as well as a German-Jewish single mother who lived here with her 2 twins and made friends with the Puerto Rican neighbor across the corridor. So this film is particular in that, in addition to exploring the female immigrant experience, it also explores what it's like to be in a gentrifying neighbourhood. This is actually based on some true stories, and 151 Ludlow has only 1 tenant left in it at this moment, and it's going to become luxury apartments at the end of the year. So we're hoping to shoot on location and before this building disappears. Thanks.
So, testing, can you hear me? Is this an episodic, or is it a feature, or?
We're not sure yet. We're making this as a proof of concept, and we've beefed out all 3 stories, and after we have the short film, we're going to decide whether it would work better as an episodic or a feature film.
Okay, and when you think through who might be interested as far as viewership goes, like who comes to mind?
women, immigrants, and people that struggle to live in big cities in small spaces.
Questions?
Do you think 2 hours is enough time to tell a story, if it's a feature film? Or is it better suited for episodic because you have more time to kind of tell a story?
I'm not completely sure yet, but I think from your question you might be suggesting that it would be better as an episodic.
I mean, I think, you know, just as a storyteller, to have more time is always great. And then that's going to dictate how you kind of do the proof of concept. So
Okay.
I think it's important for you to kind of decide now before you roll camera.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I would say. Honestly, I think the best thing about pitching is storytelling, and I think you did that. You started telling what the story was, where you would lose me or anyone you're going to pitch, I think, is the fact that you don't know what you want next, right? And so if you do this again or the next time you do it, really sit down and just take the time to say, just make your decision. What do I want with this? Where am I trying to go? And then who am I trying to pitch this to? These are all great questions because then that helps inform your pitch and how you're going to talk about the themes. And you did great with that, talking about the women, that we plan to see. But knowing if it's a feature or if it's an episodic will help you in your pitch because you can use all of that and build your pitch out, continue to build your pitch out for the person that you're pitching.
Thank you.
Sorry. I was confused because I wasn't sure what kind of project you were pitching. I think you crafted the story very well, but I wasn't sure if it was a period piece because you mentioned 1916. Is this a period piece or is this a current modernization of your story? What is it?
So the story begins with these two tenants meeting just before the election last year, which is something I forgot to say, and then we see them. There are flashes of peeling paint, of a crucifix above a door rather than a smudge stick or a mezuzah, depending on the different time periods. So they start to imagine the different periods, but it is set in modern day.
Are there other stories that are being told through the paint, the imagery of the paint and stuff like that? I think you should incorporate that in your pitch because that makes it actually kind of interesting.
Okay.
One thing you want to do, I know, when I pitch, I immediately tell people what it is. I say, this is an hour drama or an hour sci-fi or an hour period piece or an hour or a half-hour comedy or a half-hour workplace comedy. I think you always want to go into your pitch telling people what it is because it'll just give them already in their mind, okay, cool, I'm going to adjust my mindset to a comedy or I'm adjusting my mindset to a period piece. Because it'll help you, like she said, it'll help you really kind of pinpoint your dialogue with people, and they'll be able to ask questions instead of not being able to sure. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
One more thing, and I like that, and to add to that, after you say what this piece is, sometimes because when people are hearing you pitch, they don't know what you're bringing in, they're not aware of anything, it takes a long time for us to fixate our minds on what you're telling us, right? To follow your story. So here's a trick, if you want to use it. Just state the premise, or even if you want to kind of lightly, loosely state what your log line is. First, it helps to settle us in on, oh, okay, I know what this is about, and then start from the beginning of your storytelling.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
All right, so Arnold, Nichols, Vincent, come on down.
Hello. I wasn't aware we were going to be on TV. This is okay, though.
Just don't look at it.
My name is Vincent. I started my own LLC. I purchased a commercial space out in Bushwick for me to properly produce before I came over to BRIC. I'm a law student with John Jay, and I hope to work with volunteer lawyers for the arts. What I have for you today are pieces that I've been working on. They are 30-second promotional pieces, non-promotional advertising as BRIC requests. They don't advertise items, they don't sell, they just give visual texture to fill the void in between the segments. I shoot pieces with New York Fashion Week. I bring in designers, I bring in models, I bring in artists. I shoot music over at the National Opera Center, and I produce all of this with my own money and my friends and companies that hire me. I have the rights to use them. I'm in contact with all people who help me properly produce, and I own all the equipment. So I'm constantly producing, and I'm constantly bumping out 30-second pieces, 30-second pieces, 30-second pieces, because I feel that advertising and marketing are the best direction to go when it comes to television production. Given that and my knowledge of law, it goes hand in hand with business, because I come in contact with clients, I have a professional demeanor, they don't mind working with me, we get along very, very well, and I produce great content, high quality. I think that producing content now in a digital age, there's so much information out there. So I felt that it would be best if I were to bridge the gap in between those things. I have many ideas of shows that I would like to produce, of course, but we all have to start somewhere. And given the extent that projects take, like with teams and placing everything in the correct perspective and location and the time that it requires, I don't drain the people that help me. So we just put together quick ideas. We're in the studio all day. I go back, I edit it, and we come away with great, great work. And I have about 15 commercials.
Is there a pitch in here?
Yeah, I would love to air my...
Are you pitching something today? Or,
Yeah, I would love...
Or are you just pitching your services?
Well, no, I'm pitching those commercials because those are great. Like, I have that one especially I love. I would love to see those on the BRIC TV network. And if not, I will send them over to Brooklyn Free Speech, whoever can make use of them. I just think that they're great 30-second advertising pieces, and I formed them together to where they have... about 5 pieces
That's
that
your
run
pitch.
I was about to say, that's where
Yeah.
you should
That's-
start.
exactly.
I have these commercials that I think are great, that I believe would work wonderful with BRIC's content that you put out. I have about 15, then you hand them over, and then you start talking about what they are, who they're for, why BRIC, why are these great for BRIC?
Oh, you would like to know? I
Well,
love what
no,
you guys do here.
We're saying that's how you should structure your pitch.
Right, with
Whenever
context.
you're talking to whoever you end up pitching, hey, my name is this. I have these 30-second pieces, commercial or promo spots, that I've put together, and I would love to, talk to you or and then start selling them about what they're about, and I would love for you to, I guess, acquire them, or sell them to you
Yeah,
or whatever.
I think it's important to know who you're pitching to and to quickly explain, in addition to maybe the log line, what's in it for them. You know what I mean? So that you can hold people's attention. If you had started out with that, I would have immediately started thinking about what I was seeing within the context of what you're pitching it towards. You know what I mean?
Yes.
We were waiting to understand what the pitch was.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You were kind of pitching yourself as a filmmaker, which is great, but that's not really what this was for. Do you know what I mean? So really understanding, honing your message to your audience.
Okay.
And for us, it's like, okay, this content, it's great. I just want to say it's great to come in with a proof of concept. That's always really helpful. So you've already got something very visual that can help people understand what it is, and now it's about framing it. What is it? How can we use it?
Thank you for the constructive criticism. That can help me. That can help me. Yes. Any other advice?
Well, Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of glancing at the video. I mean, the quality looks great. I mean, I think part of what you want to do is pitch your services. You know, you went through the trouble to get a space, and you have equipment and stuff like that. So, you know, you're not just pitching yourself as a producer, but you're also pitching your services as a vendor for other networks, companies like BRIC, and you know, places like that. So I think part of your pitch should always be, you know, hey, this is what my company does. This is the type of things that we do. We're visual artists. We creative directors. We do interstitials. We do industrials. We can also do promos, and you know, really figure out what your business does so that you know you can pitch it.
Thank you.
No problem.
Maybe think about developing a lifestyle show. That's what I see when I look at it. I'm like, okay, this is gonna. If you're gonna develop a show, you know, that's a good space that you can maybe be in and develop a show about fashion. You know, about the designers.
I'd love to develop a show. BRIC has allowed me the space to work on a show here. It's for children of color. I bring in my baby sister and my nephew and the other producers. They bring in their kids, and we sit them alongside the green screen, and the green screen changes from pink to red to blue to orange, and there's different segments, and it's the magic of editing that we piece everything together with different children nicely against the music, and they have fun with it. But as far as the long term, I think that me going into promotional advertising would best suit me.
I have just one more thing. I think what Michael said is really cool because it looked like a lifestyle show. But I think when you go to pitch, understand, again, I'll make that point, to who you're pitching to and what it is they do.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, this feels very kind of high-end commercial. You know, when you think about what you have, who's going to want that?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So.
Thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
You guys always teach me so much.
Everybody here has somewhat of a definition of what has-been is, right? What a has-been is, right? Technical definition of a has-been is a person or thing considered to be outmoded or no longer of any significance, or a person who is no longer popular or successful, right? Close your eyes. Everybody here remembers Big Pimpin', right? The video. You see Jay-Z popping his collar, women everywhere, floating on a big yacht. Now imagine Jay-Z standing in the welfare office for food stamps. Has-Been is a show about a former wealthy hip-hop mogul who goes completely broke due to child support, IRS, lawsuits, and is now living in his mother's basement on a dingy sofa. It's an episodic show, whereas he's trying to first recover from his 1% mentality and then regain or reaccomplish the goals that he has, or just become even normal. He's struggling with life. It's a comedy filled with dramatic situations. We have everything in there. Well, I have everything in there, from dealing with father issues, dealing with women, dealing with siblings, dealing with the industry, the cutthroat industry. So that's the show there, in a nutshell.
Thank you. I like the way you started. You know, you came in, you really kind of tried to paint a picture, and you know, I think it's a very interesting show. I think probably I would start off with it being, you know, hey, I have an hour of drama, or you know, whatever the case, so that you kind of get the person who's hearing the pitch into it. But I like the way you started it. I will probably work on trying to smooth out what the show is about a little bit, in regards to, you know, talking about, you know, you talking about the themes of, you know, some of the things that are on there. I think you should mention character names. You should say, hey, look, the show focuses on this character, such and such, who was a platinum artist, and such, you know, kind of go into the pitch and really draw the the person you're pitching into the story. And don't feel like you have to give bullet points of what the show's about, but actually paint a picture of a story. Maybe you say, what if I told you about an artist that went from hero to zero? Use anecdotes that, kind of draw people in, because they might be like, oh, that's interesting, and, allow yourself to use the story to kind of facilitate your pitch. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, so I thought the first thing is, you know your story, you don't need to read it from the paper. And if you do, that says to me that there needs to be a little bit more practicing on your own time before you come, so that you know that it's here, right?
Yes.
Because when it's here, you're gonna do better telling it and delivering it and getting the other people engaged, which you had a very engaging start to it. After you stopped reading, we became engaged, and I think use that. You can choose to mention who it's about. I mean, the whole genre and what the title is at first. You can do that. You can choose that, and of course, it does allow us or whoever you're pitching to know what they're getting into. But even if you didn't, because it was so engaging, and you did have us using our mind and imagining, it worked, right? You fell off because at some point either nerves got you, or maybe a train of thought left you or something, and it got a little shaky. Here's where I didn't understand. I don't know, I thought of 4 characters. I thought you said 4 people or something in the beginning, and then it went to one person following one. I didn't know if we were following 4 people or one person. I'm not necessarily certain, and he's right. Who are we following? Where do we see him go? Like, I would have wanted you to continue telling the story about that one person. What are we gonna see through this whole film or TV show, or what are we gonna see? What the highest arc until we see him come to this last moment? And if it's an episodic, he did say episodic. Yeah. So if it is an episodic, then what happens at the highest point in episode 8? 10, how many episodes do you have, in the first season here? And even go far enough to know what season 2 and season 3 will look like. Where would this first person go? I mean, these people go eventually in season 2 and season 3. Because you had me at hello, I think. And I just want to know who these characters are. And then after you tell us where they go, then you can talk about what universal themes that people will connect to, like, father absent homes or whatever they were,
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you wanna definitely paint, like, especially when you're pitching a scripted show, you wanna tease the arcs of the characters and say this character's going from from A to B, and then some dramas, are serialized, so they're all connected, meaning that what happens in the first episode kind of strings out all the way over the course of a season or whatever the case. But you always want, you want to have a series arc and a season arc in your mind as you pitch that particular show, because you want to give the person who's listening the opportunity to kind of see, okay, well, I can see the story going in this direction. Because believe me, when you're pitching, they're sitting there thinking like, oh, we could do this, or we could do that, especially if they like to pitch.
Okay.
Because they're sitting there kind of internalizing it.
Yeah, like, I loved how you started. We kind of talked about this before. But I definitely wanted to hear a little more details about the character and what kind of happened. Instead of being a has-been, kind of like, did he lose his deal? Did someone die? Just kind of like, I just wanted to kind of get pulled into who I was going to follow in terms of who this artist was, so I can kind of identify with him and be a little more sensitive to his journey and kind of root for him. But I loved how you kind of started and kind of got us, made it interactive from the beginning.
Yeah, I definitely want to reiterate that. Like, when you asked us to close our eyes and visualize, and that was really good. And also to reiterate what a few other people said, knowing what the storyline out is at episode 8 and season 2 is really reassuring to who you're pitching to, because it shows that you've really kind of thought through those characters and those story arcs, and it can go in a lot of different directions. So A lot of good stuff there.
One more thing. I just want to talk about materials because too often we have great ideas, but we don't have good materials.
Right.
And I haven't went through this, but in this, you should also have your episodes lined out. Like, tell us what your episodes are going to be about, a small paragraph about, so that we can read the arc of these characters. So you want to have at least season 1 in here, and then a small paragraph about the entire season 2 and season 3 maybe. But put your episodes in here, put the mood and the tone. I'm not sure if it's in here or not, but make sure those things are in here. I don't know. This is a big thing too, that we spend a lot of time building out amazing characters, but we don't spend time building out the backdrop in which they live. Right? And so I don't know where these characters live. I do know he ended up in the food stamp line, but in Nebraska, or is it in Brooklyn? And because if a person that's sitting in the living room watching your show, there's a backdrop. Like if I live in North Dakota, which is always my go-to state, I just want you to know. Oh, is that a state? Yeah. I don't know, other than what TV has taught me about Brooklyn, what that looks like. And your Brooklyn may be different from someone else's Brooklyn, right? And so paint that backdrop for us too, certainly in here. And you can do that without saying it's set here and it's done here, but talk about the mood and the setting of where these characters are going to live for 2 or 3 seasons.
Okay. All right, guys, greatly appreciate it.
So I just want to remind folks who just came in, please, if you signed up online, please fill out some paperwork so that we can call you up, okay? All right, Caroline Sloan, you're up.
Okay. Oh, yeah, it makes sound. Hi, I'm Carolyn Sloan, and I'm an educator, musician, and children's book author. That's my book, Welcome to the Symphony. And the show that I'm pitching is a children's television show, episodic, for children ages 4 to 8. And it introduces them to the world of classical music through the adventures of a 6-year-old mouse named James. Now, James lives in a hole in the wall with his family, his mom, Mabel, and his dad, Ed, or Edward. And this is Mabel and Edward. Mabel and James. Edward couldn't be with us today. And this is the cover of the book. So they live in a hole in the wall next to Symphony Hall. Now, Mabel, his mom, and Edward, the dad, love classical music, and they've been really agonizing about when is the right time to introduce James, who's 6, to classical music. We shouldn't do it too soon. We shouldn't wait too late. We want to kind of give him a good education, the kinds of things that most parents think about in terms of when are we going to read what book to our sons or daughters or our children. So they decide that they're going to introduce James to the symphony and take him. And so we start, and our first episode is taking James to the symphony, and it's all about his adventures at the symphony, ranging from just enjoying the music and the instruments to falling off the balcony onto the stage and into the bell of the horn and everything else in between. We meet our other character, Miles, the jazz cat, but he's kind of the orchestra guard cat that's been hired by the management of the orchestra. And so this is an episodic cartoon. It's fully animated, 11-minute back-to-back episodes that are separated or ended with a 3-minute live-action piece of a young musician talking about their experience in a youth orchestra around the country. So it takes place in a cosmopolitan area like New York City or Chicago, and it doesn't only encompass classical music, although that is our focus, because in this little hole in the wall is this whole village of mice, of course. We're all familiar with this, living in Brooklyn. And in this hole in the wall is Mrs. Wu, and there's Miss Adisa, And there are all these other people that would be in urban areas of all different backgrounds. And so we get introduced to all their music and all their food and different lifestyles through the lives of these other mice, or these other people. They're people to me. So I like to say that it's Curious George meets the Simpsons with the backdrop of Fantasia. So it's basically about a very interesting and idiosyncratic family. Mabel loves to eat kale, and she's very into mindfulness. And Edward practices the piano endlessly and is a very, very kind and interesting educator who teaches middle school but is aspiring to be a college professor. And that's Welcome to the Symphony for children ages 4 to 8.
No, that was great. That was great. Only thing I would say is you said a log line at the end when I would say put that in the beginning. So you said it was Curious George meets, what was it?
Yes, okay.
What did you say it was?
Curious George meets the Simpsons with a backdrop of Fantasia.
Right. And so I would actually start off with that.
Okay.
So that you can already kind of set the tone.
Sure.
And only other thing I would say is just slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
Because if somebody takes the time to do a meeting with you, then you don't have to get it out. You have plenty of time to explain it. And you also had some jokes in there too. Like they were really funny, but you were going so fast that you didn't give the person time to.
I didn't wait for the laugh time. Okay.
Yeah, to laugh, And when you tell the joke, actually make it known it's a joke, so that it's like, oh, that's actually kind of funny, because those are kind of cool, cute things that kind of add to what you're doing. So how are you doing the live action? What was that?
Yeah, there's about a 3-minute live action piece where we'll profile a young musician. For instance, in New York, there's something called the New York Youth Symphony that has young musicians ages 12 to 22, and they have to audition, and they practice once a week every Sunday at the Domena Center for about 4 hours. And they're all really talented kids who just love music, and they work with a great conductor who actually now is the assistant for the New York Phil. But there are youth symphonies all across the country, and I thought it would be really interesting and inspiring to kids to play an instrument if you could profile these kids and show them, say, hey, look, there are kids just like you, and they go and are training every week at this orchestra, in Milwaukee or Nebraska, wherever.
No, that's great. And the fact that it's a book and that you're the author is really a good thing because, a lot of networks, they like intellectual property, so you actually are one of the owners and the underlying works of the book, which, hopefully will be a great sell and be a bestseller, which will give you a lot more opportunities to take it into, production. So,
thank you.
Good pitch. Great pitch.
Thank you.
Piggybacking off of the comedy thing, and this is not the point that I want to make ultimately, but the reason why the comedy worked and you shouldn't chew over it is because it gives an indication of what the writing may be like, right? And what the audience will laugh at, right? And technically, our pitch should be the same mood as the show. It should be the same. The material should kind of be the same. The pitch should be the same as whatever the feel of the show, the mood and tone of the show is. So that's another reason why to be intentional about adding the comedy. Okay. One thing I wondered about is you said from ages 4 to 8, and I wondered what were some of the themes. Is it like a teaching show? It's about classical music, or is it more? But what are the lessons that will be learned?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I think the lessons range from simply teaching concepts about music, but music concepts become sort of the backdrop to the family dynamic, which is why I say it's kind of like Curious George meets the Simpsons, because it's the family dynamic that helps to also bring out the teaching lessons. So it's social emotional learning and music. So for instance, there's one episode where James is playing with a friend and they're pretending to be all the animals in Saint-Saëns' Carnival of the Animals. And then it's how they negotiate who's going to be who. So it's kind of a learning, social emotional learning as well as music learning.
The reason I ask is because, and I just wondered if you should go younger, like 2 to 6. The reason being is because younger kids watch older television. When they get older and they know that they're learning, only because this is a lesson, this is one of my mistakes in pitching when I too was pitching a animation. And I learned, and it made sense when I had my kid, but I learned that older kids don't want to know that they're being taught anything, period. In fact, they only want slapstick. You know, the dumber and the crazier and sillier, that's what's good. So if you go younger, it falls right in line with the 2 to 6, I'm wondering. But I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't dumb it down. I would let them decide, you know.
Okay, that's something interesting to think about. Thank you.
I really love the pitch. Where do you see it going? Like, what network would you see it on?
I'm thinking PBS or Sprout, Amazon, or even Netflix, since they're getting more into children's programming. Those were the ones that immediately came to mind.
And my other thought was when you said 2 to 8, ages 2 to 8.
I said 4 to 8
4 to
because
8.
that's what the book is. Just to interject, my experience has been that kids even younger really enjoy the book, and it can be enjoyed on lots of different levels because there's all this banter among the mice and these little voice bubbles that the kids a little older really like because there are jokes. And then the littles just like pushing the buttons, and then the kids in the middle just sort of like looking at the pictures. So there is quite a range between
I feel like the range should be increased just because, you know, TV is all about advertising, so the more kids
I hear you.
can watch it, that's what they're going to be thinking.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I love the interstitial, the live action. It puts me, for some reason, in the mind of Angelina Ballerina. They would always do those.
Yes.
They would always do those little moments where you'd see somebody dancing or something. I think that's awesome.
I know we need to wrap this up, but I just want to say, this was very visually compelling, and that's always a plus in a pitch. You know, you had the materials, you came in with them, but you were also able to describe the characters really well. You know what I mean? Right. You really kind of went deep with the mother and the father and who they were, and so I think those are always big pluses.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Caroline also happens to be my neighbor, and my 3-year-old loves that book. It's a great book. I would like to now invite up Angelica Cabrera.
Hi. My name's Angelica. I'm a writer, and I write under the pseudonym Crystal Cabray. Today, I am pitching The Promise of Forever. It is my self-published novel. It's about a girl that gets captured from the government, and her family teams up with the underground rebellion to get her back. So the Outcast series takes you on a journey of love, loss, war, as Layla and her family risk everything they've ever known to go and find Asandra. Journey to Skye, a country founded on peace and equality after the nuclear war, but now has been soiled with greed and deceit. Skye is led by Stren Ruben, a man who killed his own brother in cold blood just to be able to rule the country. Tucked away in the outcast complex of Katham lie Layla, Seth, Aster, Amani, and Asandra, and they are each branded with their own complex past, and they are also branded with the burn mark from the War of the Classes. So they try to live their own life, but that's until Asandra gets abducted. So they leave behind everything they've ever known, and they go and team up with the underground rebellion group called the Revelation. And in that process, they meet up with old friends, unveil things about the country that they never knew before, and end up finding someone that they never thought they'd see again, Avon Wendash, which is Layla's very first love, and also he was also captured at the start of the war. each episode is seen through everyone's different perspective. So it ranges from a wide variety. It's episodic. Sorry, I meant to start with that. It's an episodic piece, ranging from either 30 minutes to an hour, depending how much content can be fit. Everything is based off of the book. The age range will go from about 15 to end. And there's 6 episodes already written.
Okay. Now, I've already said this.
Yeah, with the paper.
I'm going to just say it again.
With the paper.
Every time you picked up that paper, you lost us. You wrote this whole darn book. Really? Can I just be frank? Like, you're going to write the book, and then you need to write something down. You don't know what you know what your book is about. I bet if you had to redo that pitch and just started telling, I bet when you're telling your friends, like, oh, I'm writing this book, and so listen, so this is what it is, I bet you it's more compelling when you're just telling us that story about what you're writing. To learn that she was abducted and all of that, that was like the meat and potatoes of what you're pitching. So my biggest thing, obviously, I know once I give it to you, you're going to say, well, just kind of tell us what you're pitching first. Episodic came out later. But then I'm going to say, just start storytelling all of these amazing characters that you wrote about. You wrote an amazing story from beginning to end. And I'm sure with all of this book, you might got more than 6, you got some seasons in this, right? So I would say take the time to work it through, look through, and figure out how many seasons do you really have in this, and then how much further can it go even after the book, if it was more, if it was a sequel to it, like, and then start creating it. But next time you pitch, just start here. Okay. Start with what kept you up at night, kept you writing moment to moment to page 119, 223. Start there.
Yeah, I was very interested just from when you said what the book was about. It seemed somewhat compelling. I mean, it was a story about a woman being kidnapped and with the underground resistance going to save her. I was like, well, okay, that sounds kind of hot right there. But, you want to feel comfortable telling the story, Here's an exercise that you could probably do. You watch TV, you watch films, right? Pick a film that you like. Take that film and pick apart the film and actually make a pitch out of it. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I like Star Wars, What if I told you a story about a farm boy who grows up and becomes part of the resistance and ends up defeating the emperor of the universe? Did you like that?
Yeah.
That's Star Wars. I just basically took a story that I know very well and made it into a very simple pitch. That's what you should do with yours. You know this story better than anybody does because you wrote it. So allow yourself to simplify what you're doing by taking the essence of the story. Take the essence of the story and draw people in, which you did. You drew me in. But then take time to talk about the characters, but talk about the reason why this story is important by telling a story of why it's important, And I want to read it, actually. Can I read it? Can I read it?
Yeah, you
okay,
can read
great.
it.
I got to buy it, right? I'll buy it.
I mean, y'all can fight over that copy.
No, I'll buy it. But those are the only things. I mean, she said everything about the structure, your pitch, and stuff like that. I mean, I think you kind of already know. But I would just allow yourself to be more comfortable giving the story.
Okay.
And yeah, I would say definitely, I think part of the strength of this pitch is the character, that main character who is abducted. And so clearly, even though you were reading from the page, I could tell you were passionate about that character. So start where your passion is, you know what I mean? And have us buy into that character. That can bring us in. And then from there, you can paint the picture around her as well. Okay. You need to start where your passion is and where you're comfortable with telling the story as well.
When does it take place? I found myself wondering if it was sci-fi, if it was present, was it,
it takes
Game of Thrones kind of thing? I wasn't sure because depending on if it is, that's always a great selling point, to give is this meets this,
Okay. Well, it takes place after a nuclear war, so I guess kind of like Hunger Games kind of esque, dystopian kind of.
So you got to use that. I mean, you know, that's.
I ran over a lot of
It's
stuff.
Hunger Games meets
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's
like this. They're like, oh, really?
Yeah, it's almost like Hunger Game meets Taken.
Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of what, you know, that's like what you kind of created, you know? So, you know, start off with a really dope log line and just be like, the story is Hunger Games meets Taken. You already got me.
Right.
You know why? Because now a lot of networks are looking for high concept. They don't want, this is easily a story told in an urban world and in any type of civilization. This story, you're not saying that it's been told over and over, but because of where you set it, it takes it to a whole nother level. This is something that I think, this has promise of forever. No, but it does. It has a lot of promise. Girl, you gotta know how to sell this.
I think the main reason, like, I was debating the whole entire time after you said the paper, I was like, no paper. I get lost because it's 6 different points of view in the book.
I wanted to talk about that too, because I was like, wait a minute. When you were talking, I was like, wait, didn't she say it's told from everyone's point of view? See, I would go into that, I would have to bring that into the pitch a little bit more, like really bring in those facts from whose perspective you're talking. Again, that's the backdrop that you want to, the environment that you want to make clear of how it's coming out, you know, how this story is being told. Be very clear and build that into your pitch a lot more. You got something good, I think. It's really awesome.
Thank you.
Michael Astor.
Hello. You know, there are 193 countries represented at the United Nations, and each one of these countries has an ambassador who knows where he wants to go when he wants that taste of home, you know, when he misses the food from his home. So I'd like to do a 28-minute documentary in a news style where I take the ambassador out to dinner. And we go and we say, hey, what's this? You know, can you get good Kabuli chicken in New York? You know, what's the problem with that? Is this good? What's up with that? Do the Moldovans have better food or the Romanians have better food since the split? And just play around with the possibilities of taking an ambassador out to or taking him back to his own country. And why can we do that? Because New York has the whole world in New York. And so by doing this, what I want to do is show you could travel the whole world without getting off the subway. I mean, you get off the subway, but you know, so we're going to play with the subway and the thing. So when I started up with this idea, I was working at the UN. I was a correspondent for the Associated Press, and I got laid off. But before I got laid off, I said, you know, I'm not really interested in the diplomacy and the dry, you know, they pass resolutions around and whether they're in blue or not. What I was interested in was, I see the guy from the Central African Republic, and he's living in New York, and this is a really big distance that he's just traveled, like bigger than a lot of people get their head around. And next to him there's a guy from Palau, and there's another guy from Nicaragua, and there's another guy from France. And you've got this whole range of diversity at the UN, which is reflected in the city. So it celebrates the diversity of the city, which I think is really important at this time when there are some people who are questioning what good immigrants are. And there's these huge immigrant communities. And the best way to get into these issues and to talk to these people is through food, because we all relate to that. And if we're running down the road in some place and we stop and we go into the inn and we eat and we find out you don't use this hand or you cut it with that, well, that's about as close to the culture as you're going to get without marrying in. You know, the weary traveler at the inn learns all this stuff. So my show is kind of like Anthony Bourdain's show. But Anthony Bourdain, he's got a pair of binoculars and he takes you to someplace far away. I'm flipping the binoculars around, so what's close looks far.
I love food, so I love the pitch.
We all do.
I think food is a great entry into culture, so that's really clever. one of the first things you said was that it was a 28-minute documentary, but there are 193.
Each episode would be a different ambassador.
Okay, so it's episodic.
Yeah, right. It's
Okay.
episodic.
It's a docu-series.
Right,
Okay,
yeah.
so I think it's important to establish that
Okay.
because my thought was this is a one-off documentary.
No,
That's
no.
what it seemed. Okay.
It's sort of like, there's some problems with it, but the construct is take the ambassador to the most authentic home cooking we could find in the
Right.
city. The problem with that is that you top out at about 100 countries have restaurants here, and then after that you got to go to somebody's kitchen or the ambassador's home.
And that could be interesting too.
Yeah, but I'd like at the beginning to be, so the viewer can say, I see this, I want to go there.
Right. I
Yeah.
think it's important to just say it's a docu-series.
Right.
So right away, it makes more sense. Like, oh, okay, so he's going to be able to explore this over time.
Right.
You know, in several different episodes. I think another thing that's interesting when you're talking about food, especially in New York City, is you're talking about place as character.
Mm-hmm.
So where are you going in the city? And then that becomes a character as well
Right.
as the food and the ambassador.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think in your pitch, maybe being very specific about 2 or 3 or 4
Places, right.
places
Right.
and that neighborhood. You know, is it Mexican culture in Sunset Park?
Right,
You
or
know?
like Little Pakistan in Midwood or something
Exactly,
like that.
or in
So you get-
Flatbush, where you
right.
have so many different cultures.
Or
you know
Brighton
what I mean?
Beach. Yeah, no, we're
Right.
just filled with places.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, really nice pitch.
thank you.
That's the same thing I was thinking. I was thinking in terms of where it was going to take place, and if it was maybe 5 seasons, because there's 100 countries. If there's the first season is, Mexico, Nicaragua, and just kind of pinpointing we're gonna talk to those ambassadors, and we can go to these restaurants, and just so they can kind of get a sense on how many seasons they have, because that's sometimes it's not just the idea, it's the fact that we got 5 seasons out of this show.
Right. Well, I think it could also expand futurely, that you could go beyond going to the people's homes, or like if there's like an African fair where they make Ghanaian food, but they don't have a Ghanaian restaurant, and that could be a special. But I want the first few episodes at least to stick to the formula so you understand it. And I want to start with sort of the little off-the-beat countries. You wouldn't want to do something like France or Italy or Mexico, where there's food all over the place. Where it's like, what is this?
As for the pitch, it was in the middle to the end. And it was almost like you repeated it in a way, or you just got comfortable in selling it for me, that it became very clear what you were pitching, middle to end. If you were to pitch it again, I would start making it, that tagline that you had at the end, I don't know what it was. What was it?
The binoculars?
Yeah, that tagline I thought was so dope, and it's really clever. Because my mind was like thinking of where this was, how is this gonna work? You mentioned the subway, you mentioned, and I thought, okay, I'm getting it. But to say, listen, taking this, just like she said, I'm doing this, we're uncovering this culture, in this place. And we're gonna go all over New York City, and even to kind of explain what would I get from watching this? What do I, the viewer, get from watching this? So what I think I get is, I understand New York in a whole different light, and understand other cultures in a whole different light. But to know that all of this exists right here in New York, not just at the UN, but in New York City, I think making that clear that you're just like hot, and it kind of puts me in the mind of Borat for some reason. Like I think of that whole Borat.
Well, I think that's part of, I would try to bring the, because I really don't like boring conversation. And so you really want to jazz the diplomat up a little. You want to make him, because the title I have in mind is Dining with Diplomats. And it's sort of a pompous title. But if you deflate it and you kind of take it, you sort of like make it a little less serious than all this, and get in and get those guinea pig ribs out and stuff like that with your fingers.
Dining with Diplomats, yeah.
I love it.
You should include that somewhere near the top of your pitch as well.
Yeah, I don't really have any comments. I mean, I like the pitch, and I think everybody said it all, so good job.
Thank you.
Victor Aramemi?
Hi. Taller than I remember. So, The Hive is an hour-long drama that unfolds in the historic but sometimes harsh city of Memphis, Tennessee. Set against the alluring world of rap music, set against the alluring but often precarious world of rap music, a story of loss and redemption in a time of personal crisis sorry, I'm just gonna read it because I did a lot of editing.
Just tell us what it's about.
But like,
You know the story.
Yeah, just tell us what it's about. You don't need to have the best words.
right, but I'm like very like, sorry.
Like we already get the setting.
Right.
So let's dig a little deeper. Who's in this?
All right. The Hive is an hour-long drama that unfolds in the historic but sometimes harsh city of Memphis, Tennessee, set against the alluring and often precarious world of rap music, a story of loss and redemption in a time of personal crisis, complex themes that run throughout TV's current landscape. This Is Us celebrates our differences by holding up a giant mirror that helps us to explore our sameness. In its finest moments, Empire utilizes contemporary music to elevate its soap opera-style storylines. The Hive marries those worlds, delivering a powerful and compelling narrative that examines often overlooked aspects of the Black family in modern America. Ultimately, it's an exploration of Black fatherhood told through the eyes of a man who was jolted out of his self-imposed limbo when he is diagnosed with a major chronic illness, as he reconnects with the creativity that earned him his fame and fortune while learning to be open to love and raising his teenage daughter. So that's it.
So who's the protagonist of this?
His name is Baron, aka King B. So yeah.
So is he a rapper? Or?
Yeah, he's a rapper.
Okay. So this story is about him and his family with the backdrop of Memphis, and I guess the family dynamic of the Black family. Is that kind of?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it kind of sounded like a press release. I was like, okay, I want to know more.
Right. I didn't want to like
a little more personal.
Yeah.
You want us to be able to relate to you, to the story, kind of draw us in, and just have a conversation. We just have a conversation. That's what sometimes people buy into the person just as much as they buy into the story.
Yeah.
So I want to buy into you, and then I'll buy into your story. So just kind of. Just lock eyes with somebody and just talk.
I was in research mode, so.
And it's buying into you, it's buying into story, it's buying into your characters.
Yes.
Like starting there, that's a big part. And Memphis, you know what I mean? Like that was really interesting right there because there's a really strong history in Memphis. You're talking about an African American family. Let's dive deeper with that too, because there's the fabric of the history in there too, which can be really interesting.
So. First of all, you're never going to remember a full treatment verbatim. Don't try it.
Yeah.
Like you were wanting to remember every word by word, cut it out. Just say what you got to say.
Right.
Because it seems like it's some amazing stuff in there, but you only hit the top. It was like the backdrop is Memphis, Tennessee with its historical. But what if I'm from North Dakota?
Right.
I don't know crap about Memphis. Like, what if I don't? You know what I'm saying? I'm being like frank.
Mm-hmm.
So what history? What are we gonna see? The history, you talk about the hip hop. I'm still was waiting to connect this sick person who I don't know what he's ill with.
Mm-hmm.
I know that it's deadly or life-threatening, but I don't know what it is. So you only gave us like just generic parts. And I wanted to know, okay, he's sick with AIDS. He only got a little bit of time because that puts the sense of urgency on why this needs to take place in the first place. And is he a single father? Okay, so what does that bring out? Like, I want to know all of that type of stuff. And you were just like, I'm going to just tease him today. I'm not going to give him nothing. I'm coming to the pitch thing, but I'm not going to give him nothing. You know what I'm saying? That's basically what you did.
So, and I mean, obviously you all have experience, which is why you're here. So, like, I was unsure of, like, when you're pitching, like, how much are you supposed to give? Like, do you want to, like, just draw them in, but still have room for them to, I guess, be engaged by something, like, unexpected or surprising, or, like, are you weaving in, like, all of the
Yeah, I mean, I think you want to give the listener the opportunity to make the decision of what they're going to grasp and what they're not going to grasp. So you want to give them the information. You want to build the world. You know, the world is Memphis.
Right.
Memphis is Beale Street. Memphis is barbecue. Memphis is, you know, Juicy J.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's a lot to Memphis that, you know, I think you can build on to kind of give people that direction. Now, I mean, obviously you're doing like a very shorter version, but I think when you actually sit down in front of somebody and actually give the pitch, I think you can do a little bit more about talking about how Memphis plays a role, why is Memphis a character in this world, you know, of this rapper who has an ailing father, and what is it about his struggle to win in Memphis? Why is it important to him? Is he doing it for his family? Is he doing it for the kids? Is he doing it for the city? You know, what is it about that is important to him? You know, and I think that those are things that you want to also talk about in the pitch. But you know, I think you got an idea, but I think you probably want to build on it a little more, just develop it a little.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
To answer your question, because I don't want you to leave without knowing how much you should give, I like to, if I'm a pitch, I want to get out the meat and potatoes of what my show is about. I want to even ask yourself, what's the most important thing that they need to know when I'm done about this show? You don't want them in such suspense that they leave like, what was that about? Who was the main? Like, you don't want them that,
right?
Like, because then that borderlines on clueless, right? It's not a secret.
Right.
You're in this room. When you get to that room, it's no more secret. You're not holding it from anybody. You're not trying to, you know, no, it's good. Just pitch the story, pitch the characters, pitch the why, you know, the backdrop. Give them everything start with the most important things, and as long as you see you got more time, like, oh, they're gonna give me some more time. Let me give them a little bit more information, and let me tell them a little bit more information about it, and let me break down the characters and the mood and the tone and the music. What is that gonna be like?
Yeah, because the meat and the bones first. Because what if they just say, "Oh, thank you very much," and you're like, and you didn't really get out what you wanted to get out.
Right.
So leave it on the floor. Give them everything, you know. So when you leave that room, you don't feel like I should have told them about this. Maybe that would, because they're never going to tell you why there's a past.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and you know, it always helps to, I mean, we kind of gave some examples of what a show is like, you know. It's like, for me, I kept thinking of Treme. I was like, this is Treme meets, I don't know, Memphis. Yeah, Treme meets Memphis.
I kind of was thinking of Atlanta a little bit.
Or Atlanta, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because, you know, one thing that's really interesting about a place like Memphis is its rich history. You could really draw people in visually. You know, you can talk about the Lorraine Motel. You know what I mean? There are a lot of things that you can bring into there that will draw people in. So also thinking about if you were sitting in our chair, what is it that you would want to hear? What interested you in the story in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, Lawman, you're up.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lawman Lynch, and I'm a Brooklyn free speech community producer. And I'm pitching a drama series called Slick, S-L-I-C-K. So if you like Empire, and if you like Power, you're going to love Slick. And if you don't like none of them, you're still going to like Slick, because Slick is really about real life experiences. The tagline is love, life, and loyalty. And it is as local gets. It's set in Brooklyn, New York, of course, and the backdrop is actually BRIC. So it is about an immigrant who migrates from Jamaica, played by me, Moore, and he met his best friend at the Bedford Atlantic shelter because he was homeless for some time. And then he got a break working in media, and eventually he took over the media company. And the story is centered around himself, his two best friends, Richie Lou and Jenny, and his 3 employees. And each of them have very interesting storylines. One of the employees lives in Marcy Projects. So she is the least educated of the bunch that he hires. The other two are very educated. So the storyline is basically around his 3 employees and how they interact within the workplace. Eventually, he's swindled out of some monies by one of his employees, and they somehow work it out, you know? So it is a deliverable of the series is, if you guys are familiar with 106 and Park and TRL Live, it's a show within a show. So because the backdrop is a television station, a deliverable of that television station within the show is a music show. And a lot of the artists that we have within the series are actually individuals who we see at BRIC occasionally, who come to perform at different shows here at Brooklyn Free Speech. So that is a way in which we get a lot of unsigned artists involved. So it is a scripted series over 13 weeks, 28 minutes each per episode, and it has a reality twist to it. So we have completed season 1, filming 90% of season 1. We'll have the first 4 episodes ready for screening on October 1st. So we're very excited about that.
I have to be honest, I got kind of lost. You started off strong, but I think after your strong start, it was really about breaking it down. Like,
Right.
tell me more about the characters and their plot lines.
Okay.
You know, what are the high stakes? You know, what is it they have to lose?
All right.
You know what I mean? Because what makes a character interesting typically is this kind of, what is it they have to lose? What is it that they need? You
Right.
know what I mean? That's just out of their grasp or something like that. So I guess explaining it a little bit more. And it wasn't until the end that you said that you already shot a lot of it.
Right.
Proof of concept goes a long way.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I would say, you know, if those pieces are strong, you can actually show something as part of your pitch sometimes.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That can help you illustrate exactly what it is without having to talk through it the whole time.
Okay.
Yeah, I was waiting for some more details. Instead, you know, so pick three of the main characters, you know, and focus on those guys. I don't really care about the employees and, you know, just kind of, I was looking for who am I following? What you know, who's the story about? So I kind of, and then eventually what happens is you kind of tune out and you start daydreaming, you know, about something else. And so you kind of lost them. So, you know, come strong and just kind of, just get into those details about those characters and what their lives are like and why should we follow them? Because a lot of other shows with characters that we can follow. So why should we follow your characters?
Okay.
You know.
I think what Boogie said is important because, and the plot lines being kind of dropped, you spent a lot of time kind of giving us the I guess some sort of formatting or of the show, which is still kind of murky, I have to be honest. The show within the show part is kind of a little murky for me. It's a little like, I'm not sure I understand it. And then the arc of the season arc went flat. You was like, they embezzle money and then they work it out. Thank you. No, that you have to, that's a whole bunch that you need to kind of you need to talk to us about that arc, right? Get more into that. And I just don't know what you, the lead, really does, or your two best friends. I thought it was rather interesting that the girl lives in Marcy, and you got the two other educated, and I thought maybe you were going to get into what that dynamic is like, episode to episode, like, because sometimes I'm like, If I'm sitting on my sofa, what will I see? What can the viewer expect to see? And what can I expect to see?
Right.
And I don't know if I understand what I'm following. I don't know if I understand what you shot 9 episodes, 13 episodes, 12 episodes. I don't know what you shot.
Okay.
Really, because you didn't explain that to me, other
Okay.
than I know I'm gonna see some music.
Good.
We know we're going to see BRIC in there.
And it's a BRIC.
Yeah, and you know, I can't really say anything more because they kind of said everything I was going to say. I would just, you know, work on your pitch a little bit more. I think you first started off the pitch really well, actually. I mean, structure-wise, but I think part of it is maybe you just need to think out your pitch a little better. You know what I mean? Like actually spend the time to work on an outline of, you know, what you're trying to do. Because I wasn't sure that you knew exactly what you want to do. I think you had an idea and you kind of wove some stuff in there. But I mean, I think you can. If you spend some time with it, I think that you can, you know, you can make it better.
Okay, great. Thanks for the feedback. Things that I know exactly what I want. I think the series itself has a lot of moving parts, and because of the moving parts, I think that, you know, we do have a trailer that I want the 100 people behind me sitting to watch. It's called Slick, the series on YouTube, SLICK, the series, and check it out, and I'm sure you'll get a greater sense as to.
Can I ask, what are 3 of the moving parts?
3 of the moving parts. One, like I said, the show within a show.
Okay, that's one.
That is one. 2, the dynamics of the characters, the fact that they're from various social, economic backgrounds. So that's another aspect that is dealt with in the show. Also, we deal with social issues such as migration and abuse. Yeah.
Go more into those moving parts. Maybe that's where your pitch is. You missed the meat and potatoes of the moving parts.
Right. And within that, we'll get to see what the characters have to win or lose, you know?
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Derek Dahlman.
Hi, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. So I am pitching a show called Alpha. It's a 1-hour drama. Yeah, if I could come up with a log line, it would be in an advanced but unequal future, Mad Men meets Game of Thrones. Now, I need everyone to do me a favor. I need you to imagine a world split starkly between haves and have-nots, if you're capable of doing that. That's the future of this world. Essentially, corporations now control everything. And if you're a have, you work for a corporation. If you're a have-not, you work for a slum. So you can imagine something like a very dark and gritty city. And our corporation is a nice shiny tower, kind of like a Google campus, vertical. Our story has characters one from the slum and one from the corporation. Our main character is named Catherine. She's the new CEO. She has recently been promoted to CEO because of everyone else in the executive staff has been killed. The board of directors decided to kill them. And we don't know why she survives. She's pretty embattled because all of her new employees don't know why she survived, and they're not sure if they can trust her. So while we get the sense that there are other hunters in the jungle, other corporations to fight with, most of the first season is settled on this civil strife of who to trust. The other character is this woman named Taylor. She has been plucked from the slums, and she has been recruited to work as Catherine's assistant. And sorry, I had a pitch written, but I decided to kind of talk about it more fluidly, like you suggested, Squeaky. And even though she's not really qualified, and she comes from this hard-scrabble background, for some reason the CEO has decided to make her executive assistant. And the third kind of curious incident going on here is that there's this outpost out in the Amazon that is seemingly abandoned, but for some reason Catherine has decided to station it with an army and to keep it off the books. And lastly, someone is arming the locals to attack this base. And we don't know what's going on, but something's going on within this outpost that clearly people want to keep a secret. Sorry, that's my pitch. Sorry. I kind of ran out of gas, but yeah. I didn't do a great job framing it. Apologies.
So what happens?
Throughout the season, or?
Just tell us more about the outpost or Catherine or the girl from the slum.
Sure. So the outpost is attacked. We find out that they are essentially researching a element, the 125th element, right? There are a scientific belief that there are footsteps that you can create a new type of energy on the 125th element. So the series would explore elements of science as well as, I think it would go into what's the issue with wealth inequality and what, sorry.
Keep going.
Yeah, sorry, I feel like I'm falling apart up here.
Actually, you're not.
Oh, I appreciate it, thank you. Yeah, so it would be a high concept sci-fi drama. It would, but I think I'd ultimately want it to be very human. It's about this character who I think we can all relate to, who's going through something like an imposter syndrome. She's now the CEO. Most of her coworkers have been killed. She feels embattled both by the board of directors. You're living in a world almost with no laws and no rules, and you're living in this purely capitalist society. And so you're exploring, I think it's one of the age-old questions, how should we treat each other if there were no rules? And how is mankind supposed to govern itself? And
what's her biggest arc?
I think her biggest arc is learning how to trust people. She's a very cold and calculating person. She doesn't know who to trust, honestly. I mean, she essentially lived through a tragedy. She's a survivor.
So is there a connection between the assistant and the CEO? I mean, do they?
Yes.
Is the person from the slums was the assistant? Is she, and you say it's a drama, so is there some type of drama or action that happens from people from the slum fighting the corporate world? Is that an element of the story?
Right. So eventually it's characters having to pick sides and basically saying this is not an ideal world and we need to make a change.
Is there some revolution that goes on?
Yeah, that would be the arc of the series.
I think that's something that you should mention from the beginning. Okay. Is saying that this is a world that's very unorthodox. Right. That has characters from the 1% and characters from the 0%. Right. And through the course of the series, there's a big revolution where people who are caught in the middle have to choose. Right. So if you say it like that, then you automatically kind of let me know, okay, cool. Well, there's some high stakes event that's going to happen that I'm going to be drawn into, and I'm going to look at what I'm going to be captured by is the conflict between the protagonists.
Divergent.
Right.
In a way. It's like Divergent. You only fell off because you were so in your head about the fact that you were sucking. Because if you just had kept going, I was actually intrigued. So what happens with what's the biggest? What happens with the CEO?
Well, I think that the gentleman said before is I kind of was planning to pitch the pilot. So I had this whole prepared thing about and then you say, what happens next? But then, as I sat here, I was like, oh, I have to say about the whole series, and it kind of fell apart.
Do you know where the whole season goes?
I have loose arcs for people. I could definitely get that tighter, yeah. But I have a general idea of where the series is going and what's happening.
I can tell that it's not completed.
Right.
I can tell.
Yeah.
Because I could tell that you didn't know. I sat there and said, he doesn't know the rest of his season, which I would not tell you to pitch until you knew.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
And that's what I was going to ask. How does the season end? But to me, you had all the pieces. They were a little scattered, but all the pieces were there. So it was enough to kind of keep me engaged, and I kind of tried to connect the dots myself, but all the pieces were there.
Sorry, I came prepared to pitch a pilot, and I had to pitch a season.
Yeah. This is what it's about, is working it out. I mean, you had all the pieces there for a great ending.
Okay.
Now it's just figuring out what that ending is. Okay. And in addition to Divergence, I started thinking of The Circle. The Circle. Did anyone see that?
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
The movie, yeah.
I mean, you talk about like a Google's type corporation, and,
Right.
you know. So also think about how do you help the people you're pitching to visualize it? It's Divergence meets the Circle, or something.
Yeah,
like
and that's
that.
something I struggle with because it's not taking place like in Memphis. It's taking place.
But that's what they're looking for.
Right.
Just create it for yourself.
Okay.
And you did a great job
Yeah, right.
explaining, like, imagine Google vertical.
Right.
And the slums, I mean, people get the slums.
Right.
It's like somewhere in the not too distant future.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's my hope, right?
Right, demolition. Yeah, I did think of that. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your feedback. I really appreciate it.
All right, now we have Christine Deco McHarry.
Thank you, and welcome. Good evening to all you fine people. I'm here to pitch a show.
I would say adjust your mic a little bit, maybe.
Okay, sure. That's it. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Christine Deco McHarry, and I'm African. I was born in England, but I particularly got interested in selling and showcasing the African content because I think it's highly, highly misrepresented. I have a talk show right now called Unveiling Africa. And when I first decided to do this, I did an unofficial poll. And I asked people on the train, I asked people on the streets, what do you know about Africa? And they all tell me, oh, genocide, poverty, hunger, everything negative. And then I turn on my TV, and the first time I hear about a country in Africa, it's something devastating, sad, sorry. So I said, I'll showcase the very best of Africa. Nothing negative, nothing detrimental or desecrated. Something that's fun, full of life. Did you know that some people don't even know Africa is a continent? They call it a country. So I like to try to teach the world and showcase to the world that Africa is a beautiful continent and has every single mineral you can think of in the world in Africa. It has not been sold for all its worth. We have 26 Nobel laureates from Africa. We have 7 female presidents. Do we have one here in America? We're trying to get one yet. So I said, we don't know about these things. We have rap artists that have strong ties to the continent. We have people like French Montana, who's Moroccan. That's Africa. We have other people, fashion designers, makeup artists, actors. Idris Elba, he's African. And we have our guy, we have many other people, things happening there. The food, the arts, the movies. We have so many movies. Nigeria, one of the countries in Africa, in West Africa, is the second-rated country in the world for movies, for the movie industry, next to Bollywood. It's Nollywood. So, I mean, I wanted to share this story about everything in Africa that makes you happy, laugh, excited. The fashion industry is magnanimous. We have so many African festivals, so many fashion African coming into the fashion industry, Fashion Week. We have several in Africa, in South Africa, in Nigeria, in West Africa. Ethiopia, Rwanda, South Africa have one of the most prosperous economies in the world today, fastest growing. The subway system, you will never know. When put next to the American subway system, it's like, oh my God. So, I mean, all these things I wanted to bring home to the people of America and the world at best to show that Africa is not the dark continent anymore. You should get on now on the ground floor before the elevator takes off and you miss out on the world's greatest economies coming onto play. So I wanted to showcase this, and I have several episodes of people who could tell the story of Africa, of accomplished individuals who live here, who live in Africa, who live all over the world, trying to bring out the very best of Africa. The World Health Organization #1 man is from Ethiopia, Dr. Tavares, and he's showcasing the health system that will save many people in Africa. So it's not like I'm going to share just fun things, but we're going to show things that will make other people want to come to Africa, and everybody will want to be African. And you know what? Africa is not just black. Africa is a diverse continent. We have all kinds of people there. Why do you think Princess Diana loved Africa so much? And the children are following after it. You know, so much in Africa nobody wants to share. I think there's a secret. the ones who know the true secret do not want to share it because they know what they have in their pockets. So I think if you give me the chance, I'll showcase some of my stories. I'll travel the continent of Africa, live among the people, bring the true story of Africa to the world, and not just the dark, gloomy stories, the stories of genocide or hunger, which are so far gone far away from us. If you want to find the best of architecture, the best designers, the best clothing, the best food, the best travel sports, the safaris and all, please join Unveiling Africa as we unveil the beauty and the mesmerizing continent of Africa.
So you're a great spokesperson for the continent of Africa, I have to say.
I'm what? Sorry?
I said you're a great spokesperson.
Oh, thank you.
But you didn't really pitch the show. You really more pitched Africa. And I understand that you were using that kind of as a way to talk about why the show is important, but you forgot to talk about the show.
The show is actually Unveiling Africa, which is actually unveiling...
Hold on, before we finish.
Okay, sorry.
So what I think, just in dynamics of the pitch, I think what you want to do is you want to talk about what the actual show structure is.
Okay.
Because, you talked about lifestyle, you also talked about health, you talked about different people's stories, you talked about food, you talked about culture. However, you didn't really kind of pinpoint on what the actual show is. So is the show a panel of people? Is it hosted by one person? Is it, a daytime show? Is it more a show that would live like on Saturday or Sunday, in Fringe? What is the actual type of show that I would be expecting to see? You don't have to answer the question. I'm just basically kind of critiquing it. So, but I think what you want to do is really just formalize the pitch of the show first. Then you can talk about all the things that you can talk about within each segment. Because when you have an hour talk show, there are 6 segments to talk about. Whatever you want to talk about. But I think I didn't kind of get what you were trying to do per se. But you painted a great picture of Africa. I'm going tomorrow.
You're welcome. It's your home.
Right.
But to be clear, this is a talk show that you want to do.
It's actually a talk show, and also eventually I'd like to make it a reality talk show. I mean, a talk show within a reality show. That means I'll be followed while I do the talk show with people, with African people who love Africa, and also sometimes have a panel of people discussing health issues or beauty, So
Okay, so it's a talk show, and it is a reality show eventually.
Exactly.
And then there's a panel. So
within the talk show, it could be a panel
in
or
the talk show.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you need to do is create the actual format.
Okay.
Right? That's what it seems like you're doing. You need to create the format. In your materials, show us what the show is going to look like. Show us what the segments within the show will look like. What they can expect to see from commercial to commercial. You have to create the format of this show. And you can start with that great storytelling, right? Telling us all the stuff that they never show us. For about we're going to give you 60 seconds on that. Get to the height of why Africa is so amazing, which it does. I'm like, dang, I ain't know that. So that's good. But you got 60 seconds on that part, and then say, so I've created a talk show that will blah, 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 right? And how long is this talk show? I don't know if it's
30 minutes, 28 minutes.
Oh, okay, yeah. 28. So you need to figure out.
And it's a weekly show.
And it's a weekly, so figure out what we're going to see, what we can expect to see week to week, and so build that out. And actually, build out the episodes. On episode 1, where are you going to take us in Africa? And what are we going to see? What people are we going to talk to? In episode 2, where are you taking us? Who are we talking to? What guests are you inviting on for each episode? Build the format out so that you can pitch it, right?
Thank you.
It didn't sound like a talk show. And that's what when you were pitching it.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it's to do what you wanted to do. It needs not be in the studio. Yeah. It needs to be on location.
You said that in the end,
so I think that's where you start building from. the fact that it sounds like a lifestyle show where you can highlight,
Or even
you know,
advice.
things, you know, in Africa and people from Africa. So I think it's definitely something that, you know, you can work on and not call it a talk show because it's not really a talk show. It's, you know, I don't know if it's a variety show, but it's
actually,
a
when I
docuseries.
wrote that, I said a variety show because it could encompass
Right,
a lot of
right. You can have
stuff.
fashion, you can have food,
exactly.
you can have a lot of things, you know, that highlight the culture. So I think that's a good place to start because then you need to look at shows in that format because half an hour is not long enough to really. I don't think there are any talk shows that are half hour. Yeah, and just look at the space and see what's there. You know, if it doesn't exist in that space, it probably doesn't exist for a reason. So you don't want to go into a pitching something that doesn't exist, kind of, sort of. You box yourself in a corner, you know.
And I would say, piggybacking off of what Michael said, I think you need to get clear on the storytelling style, on what it is. Because you could talk about it in a talk show, but what you were describing could only be told through visually actually being there.
True. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So is it a news magazine style talk show where you have video roll-ins in between, where you get to go to some sort of 5-minute segment about a particular thing, maybe Fashion Week in Lagos or something? Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
You know, what does that look like?
Okay.
So really kind of breaking it down, and like what Squeaky said, tell us what the first 6 episodes look like. Who are your guests? Where are you going? What subject matters are you hitting?
Okay. Thank you, Alvaro.
But I love the idea.
Yes.
I love it.
Oh, and check out Afropedia. Have you seen Afropedia? Afropedia? Yeah.
Becky Morgan, we're getting close to the end here. We just have 3 more.
So my name is Becky Morgan. What you have in front of you is a one-sheet, so it's just short synopsis, character sheet. Didn't have time to go into episode arc. Don't want to waste too much of your time. So this is essentially envisioned as a short web series, drama / comedy / sci-fi. I picture it as kind of if you put a little bit of Insecure, a little bit of Blade Runner, and a little bit of Mr. Robot in a blender and see what happens. I picture it also as kind of an exploration of the cyberpunk genre, which is not too represented on film or TV these days. And essentially that's the concept of high-tech meets low-life. We live in a society where we're able to come up with these great cybernetic advancements. We're able to cure diseases. We're able to solve a lot of huge problems. But we have, I think, the biggest problem in empathizing with other people, with relating to our neighbors, with just socially and emotionally connecting with other people. And so I think while this is something that's rooted in a not too distant future where our main protagonist, her name's Nia, she's in her 30s, she's still kind of finding her footing. And I think what makes her unique is she's bionic, and she doesn't look like the Terminator. She looks like you or me. The difference is she grew up with chronic diseases where slowly but surely her body was breaking down and things had to be replaced. And so now while she looks like you and me, her hand might be robotic, her left eye might be something that is new in the last few years. And it's a subset of society that benefits from this technology, but there's a stigma tied to it because it's kind of like the new nose. You're not you, you're a modification of you, and so there are certain people who will hate you because you merely exist. So it's just sort of an exploration of someone like us and that she has a day job. She has a sister she loves. She has a best friend who comes over every day for dinner. But meanwhile, she's battling these demons that we don't necessarily actually experience yet in our society. So I think it's a really cool way to take the monster of the week, which I think for me allows escapism in TV, which I find most comforting. And just kind of putting a monster in front of trauma and tragedy that we experience every day. So the tragedy and the trauma of feeling out of place, the trauma of feeling violated, the trauma of feeling like you're still trying to find your community, or that the community you find yourself in doesn't love you back. And I think setting it in a not too distant future sci-fi environment based in Brooklyn, based a few years out, everything looks the same, Starbucks is still there, you gotta pay rent, all the stuff that keeps it grounded in something that we can relate to, but allows it to distance itself in a way where you just kind of escape your day-to-day a little bit more. So the idea for the web series, and why I like the web series is I like short content. I think it's really accessible, and I think it's something that folks don't have to commit too much to. And if it's more from an independently produced mindset, I think you can explore more, take more risks without sacrificing good content quality or quality content. So I think each episode kind of follows things rooted in Nia trying to find love, but she kind of has these hiccups that are kind of specific to someone who might be a cyborg, which is sometimes her body parts go against what she wants. She has a tendency to sleepwalk, which means that she enters, when she sleepwalks, she goes into a fugue state and might, attack people. Or in a way where if I'm confronted, I'm a human, I can't fight back, she could kick your ass, kind of a thing. So kind of balancing that fierceness with having to be a human and having to put up with the society we find ourselves in. And I think a big overarching part is she, in the long run, is kind of fighting against a subset of society who won't change, who won't accept her, and she kind of slowly becomes our reluctant heroine. Yeah. Cool, thanks.
I think part of what was hard for me to grasp was because you said it was a comedy, a drama, it was like all these different things. So,
yeah.
But then you said some funny parts. So I kind of like in my mind sat back, oh, it's kind of like this a little bit. Part of like we've said before previously is that you kind of want to paint the picture for people and tell them really what it is.
Yeah.
Now there are shows that have kind of live in the dramedy world, where there's drama, but it's also kind of a comedy, but it's drama. I don't know if that's this show. I didn't really feel that. I got the sense of the way the jokes that you were kind of saying, that this is a straight comedy about a very obscure person who has these superpowers and doesn't kind of know how to use them.
Yeah.
And then in the midst of it, she's in love, but she can't really figure it out. I think part of the humor of what the story you're telling is her kind of being this fish out of water, this person who can't figure things out because now she's got these superpowers. That's really the arc of this person, is figuring out, because that's where the jokes are. The jokes are, imagine if you had an extra arm, like what are you going to do with that arm? How are you going to use that arm? Or if you had the ability to be invisible, how would you use that to your advantage? And how do you make that funny? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So.
Thank you.
Also, you kind of talked a little, like kind of big picture, high level, which was great because, there's some social commentary in there and, that made sense. But I think it's really important to, after you kind of get that point out, quickly jump back to this character.
Okay.
And when I started to really kind of get more interested was when you started talking about her sleepwalking issues.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I immediately started thinking, well, is this in the pilot? Like, what does the pilot look like? What are some of her story arcs? What are some of her locations? Who are some of the characters that she interacts with?
Yeah.
Like really kind of wanting to see more of this character and her world in the pitch.
Gotcha.
I think I like the pitch, right?
Okay.
I think you need to reverse it. I think because you kind of give us the whole concept first, which is good because you kind of, which is okay because you're kind of setting us up for what you're about to tell us as far as the plot is, the storyline, I guess, is concerned. But you give so much that we're listening to the plot, and I kept saying she's going to forget to tell us who this person is, but you kept jumping back in there, and here's where you succeeded because you did honestly get out everything about.
Okay.
I understood because the first, it's a drama, it's a comedy, and I was like, what is all of that?
Like pick one.
What does that mean? And I don't think you need to pick one. I just think you need to place that in a strategic. You need to be strategic about placing everything that you just said. Figure out how to put it so that we're following like this, and it's not here and there. Oh, okay, and then because we're trying to piece this whole thing together.
Yeah.
Which, at the end, it's like, oh, okay, now I get the dramedy, and I get because I don't feel like it's strictly comedy, for the simple fact that she's kind of effed up in a way, like you know what I'm saying? Like she has a lot to deal with, and I love the fact that she's human. Not really, right?
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying? Like that's a lot. That's a hard thing, and it's so many emotions and things like that most normal people would absolutely have to deal with, right? We deal with. I like all of it. I just think you have to be strategic in placing the things, everything.
That's the same thing I was thinking too.
Okay.
Because sometimes you don't have a lot of time.
Right.
But, but I really love the concept, and I was like, wow, I kind of would like it being longer, because that's just, But in just this world and this commentary about us as a society, there's a lot of interesting pieces to it.
Okay.
But I really like the pitch, just about kind of figuring out, compartmentalizing it with this part 1, part 2, and part 3, and then just sticking to that, because then that'll help us, because it so well that it makes sense to you. So to somebody outside, it'll help.
Thank you guys, I appreciate it.
More random. This is so random, and you don't have to listen to it. But for me, I think this will play well in Teen Nick for some reason, to make it younger. I think that space would really appreciate her and all of the stuff that they're going through, living in this world that they're living. We're in our generation may not understand their generation, which is it's like, you're weird because you don't get me where I'm at. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I think they'll get this for some reason. So that's something to think about.
Thank you, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
So we have time for one more, Mercury, and then we're going to wrap for tonight. So come on down, Mercury.
Okay. Can this come out? Yes. Yes. Ta-da! No, I just feel better if I could move around a little bit. All right. My name is Mercury. I have a talk show on BRIC, Brooklyn Free Speech, Network 3. It's called The Break Room. And pretty much, I used to be in music. That's where I started from. I was a rap artist for a very long time. And things didn't go the way that I exactly wanted it to go. So in a way, my talk show pretty much pays homage to the artist. It pays homage to the entrepreneur, because also I've been an entrepreneur pretty much my whole life as well. So the talk show pretty much is geared around the entrepreneur, the enterprising being. So we create value by having artists and entrepreneurs on the show, giving a little backdrop into their story, into their journey of, how they got in the business, the obstacles of their business, so that people that are watching, which is my demographics of, about 65% male, about 35% female, and, pretty much between the ages of 15 and 65, I do, it's funny because I found out all of this information that, people even in their 60s are watching and, viewing my growth and development, for the show, and, also me being Mercury, the personality. So, it's for the entrepreneur, the viewer as well. So pretty much the explorer type, the entrepreneur type, they're all watching to pretty much see who's going to be on next. A couple of my segments are the 2-minute turn on, so people that are gearing up to start a business, say it's a catering business, and they didn't have all the stuff, all together, but this is what they want to do. I'm going to be like, okay, 2-minute turn on, look out for such and such, If it's music related, design related, same kind of premise. If they're not completely developed, or, say they are, but, they're up and coming, okay, check out London Savoy. She's coming out with the, video, same language, 2-minute turn on. So you're going to see that. Also, you have the guests themselves. So I pretty much, over the almost 2 years that I've been on BRIC, and the show's been on air, the people that are on the show, as well as the people that watch it, they like it when I'm on set, like if I'm on location. So I call it field footage. So that's like also one of the segments. So I'm out on the field, I'm talking with different individuals. One of the last people that I just interviewed, which is going to be on September 12th, is Dashay Hopkins from the hit show Power. She was Raina, so we're having a whole Bring Raina Back. So hashtag that after, we leave here, hashtag Bring Raina Back. So that's pretty much, I went to go see her perform in different places, and so that's going to be on the show. People get to see different things. So like you kind of got Video Music Box meets like Ellen, you know, kind of like that, you know, meets kind of like a Wendy kind of thing, because I'm not polished and I don't really want to be completely polished, because what I like about television and what I would like to see on television is kind of the mistakes too, because people tend to think when they watch television, they tend to think that's what it is, and they don't know there's work, there's mistakes, there's this, there's that, and I want to bring that element, because the break room is like, it's a three-parter. So we're breaking out, you know, all the talented individuals that you may not know about, you know, that are out, but you may not know about them. So I'm breaking that out, babe. And then, you know, also when you're in the break room, when you're at work, and, you know, you're talking about your other stuff, you know, you're talking about your kids, you're talking about your hobbies and this, that, and the third. So that's why, another reason why it's called the break room. And then also the break room is breaking itself out, you know, because I'm the host, Mercury the personality, yay. So it's also breaking out the actual show. So if you think about The Simpsons, when they first started, the characters, they were kind of like, you're like, I'm not really, but you followed them because the content was valuable, it's funny, you liked it. So you're gonna love the break room because it's funny, you like it. It's, you know, it's giving you things you don't even know about. So hello, you're gonna love me because I'm giving you stuff you don't know about. So, and then also the editing and everything is becoming better and better and better, and you get to see the growth, so you're along for the ride of the break room growing. And you're along for the ride for everyone that comes on the show, for anyone you like, any business you like, any designer you like, any model you like, any artist you like, you know, actor, you know, artists themselves, dancers, whatever, you know, you're gonna love them. Restaurants, whatever. If I turn you on to it, you're gonna go on their ride as well. So, yay!
So this isn't necessarily an in-studio show, because you said you want to be in the field.
Yeah, sometimes I'm in the field, sometimes I'm in the studio.
Right.
Like I had Don Shay Hopkins, I had her in the studio, and I also had her in the field. So like when she's on red carpet, there I am. I was like, hey, and then, you know, right. I had her for a more intimate, you know,
and it's something that you want to host, right?
I do host.
Oh, you do? So
yes.
this show
it's on.
exists already?
It does exist.
So you're pitching another version of it? Is that?
No, what I'm doing is I'm practicing my pitch because I want to be able to go to other networks with my work. I want to be able to, you know, get some revenue maybe. You know, maybe BRIC will pick me up, you know. Who knows, you know? But I definitely want to get better in what I'm doing. Right. But I also want to keep the element of rawness. You know,
you
because that's important for me.
You definitely have the personality,
Excuse
you know.
me?
I say you definitely have the personality to be the host.
Yay!
No, and I mean that in a good way. I mean, you know,
yes.
you're bubbly and you have, you know, you seem like you're a relationship expert to be able to talk to people. But, you know, I think, you know, and we've talked about this throughout the course of the night, is, you know, since the show already exists, you know the show better than anybody, you know. So I think practicing your pitch in this situation is really just breaking down the format of an already existing property. You know what I mean? And I don't know if you did that specifically, you know, because I didn't really catch what you were doing. I'm thinking this was a show that you were trying to do, not a show that exists already. So really just, you know, like if you want to pitch it out, you know the show's already kind of exists. Just talk about, you know, what the show is now. Talk about it, you know, how the format is, you know, just say, hey, look, you know, I'm envisioning an hour show or a half-hour show that consists of lifestyle, that consists of music and entertainment, where me as the host, interview all of these different types of people, and, you know, and really just kind of hit the broad strokes of the pitch, and then you can talk about all the other stuff. Because, you know, I kind of wasn't sure what the actual pitch was at first. You know what I'm saying? But then I actually got into it when you started talking about the things that you want to do, or the things that the things that you are doing already, since you're going to all these places.
Yes.
So just nail the format down. That's the only thing you got to do.
Okay.
Nail the format and
I'm nailing. Ding, 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 ding,
nail the
ding.
format and use the log line to kind of paint the picture of what you're trying to do. That's it.
Okay. Will do. Thank you.
Yeah, I say all of that, and I probably will repeat you, but the format of it was all over the place.
Okay.
You know, you talked about, like, when you talk about the segments, I have a show that just, it goes from here to here to here to here to here. In every episode, that's what you can kind of expect to see.
Okay.
And some of the people that I have interviewed is like Deshawn, what's her name?
Darshay.
Darshay.
Yes.
Like Darshay. Sorry, Darshay, if you hear, I saw you here.
Yeah, I did the same thing when I met her too. I was like, I'm
But,
bad with names, especially when they're special.
But like, you can talk about some of the guests that have been on. More importantly, or you can just kind of talk about, let me give you an example of what an episode would look like. This. And then, because you know what you're going for, here's where I see the show going. And this is what the episodes, what I really want them to look like, keeping the rawness, right? Because you've already done some shows, but your vision seems like, what you seem like you're trying to say is that my vision is a little bigger. So create that vision and pitch that vision of where you want, what you want to see.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes. Thank you.
I was thinking the same thing in terms of, you know, were you thinking about making this bigger, the show that you already have, because I know you already have a show, and what does it look like 5 years from now? What is that thing that you're aspiring to do? What is that show? Or is it the same show on another platform, or is it a bigger show?
It's a bigger show.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yes, it definitely is a bigger show. If BRIC picks me up, it'll be here. But, definitely a bigger, bigger, platform, everything, if possible. More time. It started out as an hour show, but then I really wanted people to remember the break room, so I had to break it down to two 30-minute shows within the month so that people could really keep remembering it, because a month, if I'm, trying to get you to get it, I need you to see me more.
That was another thing. How long did it take you? I'm thinking, how long has it taken her to shoot all of this if you're like following Darshay to different places and so on and so forth?
Oh, I have very good time management skills, and everyone that I have on the show, I pick myself, so I have like a thing with them. So we have like a whole setup. I write everything out. I let them know this is what I would like to do. Is it possible? And then we work everything out and scheduling. So yeah, I get it done.
I'm not concerned about you getting it done. Obviously, you get it done. I'm concerned about your pitch, right, and what you're going to pitch to them, right? Because you got to pitch that. That's budget.
Right.
And so either just being clear about this is what I want to do if it's lifestyle. So I do plan to follow the person of the day to 2 or 3 different locations. For instance, I did this in this season and this is how I've done it.
Okay.
So we can so they'll get a clear picture of how they're going to spend this money.
See why I came?
Yeah.
Thank you. Nailing. Think, 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 think.
I think a big part of the pitch that worked was that it was you. It's your personality shining through. You're the brand. You're a big part of the show. And actually just seeing you here and seeing your personality and everything that you're bringing, I could see you holding down a full episode, a full show, a season of them. I think it's important to pitch what it is you want the show to be, but then use parts of what the show currently is that are working as part of the pitch.
Okay.
Because then you're showing that you kind of have a proven track record of getting those things done. You have access to these people, which is key. But I mean, being really clear about what you want the show to be, and actually labeling it, categorizing it. Okay. It's a talk show. It's maybe a news magazine style show. It takes place in the studio and out in the field, and really, like Squeaky said, breaking it down. What does a rundown of an episode look like?
Okay.
And really really structuring the way you talk about it a little bit, because it was a bit all over the place.
Yeah. See, we're nailing again. Think, 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 think. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. Was excellent for me. Thank you.
So that's our show for tonight. I just want to thank all of the panelists for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here tonight. It was really valuable hearing your perspectives, and you had really great feedback for our community. So I just want to give them another round of applause. I also want to thank and commend everyone that came up, had the courage to come up and pitch your shows. It takes a lot of courage to do that. So another round of applause for you guys.